Hello, friends. Today I wanted to talk about thoughts, emotions, and intuitions and how to distinguish the three in terms of making any decision and what compartments of your logic you should be using when you have to determine or make a decision in a given situation. So, let me uh, first start by saying that thoughts, emotions, and intuitions, these are three primary faculties that a person will generate all the time, but depending upon the predispositions they have, depending upon their nature, they might be influenced by one more than the other. For most folks, and it can be biological as well, especially when you are in certain gender in general. If you think about male being influenced more by purusha or the consciousness, and female energies being more influenced by prakriti or the material modes of nature, the males in general will have a tendency to use more of the mind, and females will have more of the tendency to use uh, emotions and intuitions. Now, intuitions, obviously, if you believe in astrology, you know that the water signs, especially things like Scorpios and Cancerians, even Pisces, they will have a very strong gut feeling, or they're also very strong empaths. They can feel how other person feels, but that is you can, in a way, in a simplified version, think of intuition as a glorified emotion, except that it is very neutral and it's not uh, going to mislead you, if that's the right word that you can use. So, in general, males have good abilities to use the thinking brain, the neocortex, which will cause formation of thoughts as in manas, and the females will do better with emotions, which is the reactionary thoughts in a way that you can think of, which are spontaneously generated. They are reactionary yet spontaneous. In the reactionary, because they are secondary to some event or stimulus that happened, and spontaneous because you're not able to control the content of the thought. The thoughts themselves you can control to a certain extent, depending upon what direction you are wanting to think. But emotions are more running amok, and you feel grappled and contained by the forces within the emotions. So that's the major distinction between thoughts and emotions. Intuitions, although they appear to be, as I said earlier, glorified emotions, they kind of are generated spontaneously, and they are not reactionary. So that's why I strongly believe that you cannot teach a person to groom their intuitions. Intuitions are as native as it gets. They are the primordial source of thoughts and emotions. So they are the most noble, novel, and uh, untainted way of generation of logic, if you will, because I don't want to use the word thought and emotion to define intuition. So, logic basically can come from emotion, can come from thoughts, can come from intuition. The one that comes from intuition is the most pure and the one that will lead you to make the right decisions in life. How do you define which one is a thought, which one is an emotion, which one is an intuition? It takes a lot of practice, and you have to silence the clamor in the mind. By that I mean you have to get rid of the random distracting thoughts that exist in the mind, come as waves, and then leave the mind. So those are the thoughts, and you will see that lots of times you don't feel you have a lot of control on the thoughts. But if you practice meditation, and if you practice karma yoga, which is constantly immersing yourself into meaningful scheduled activities, you will have very little time, the downtime, the boredom time, to generate thoughts that you don't want to identify with, but the mind kind of takes you there anyway. So obviously, if you control your gunas or the modes of nature, the kind of company you keep, the kind of activities you engage in, you will reflexively affect the thinking process. And that's the best way to distill and purify the thought process. If you want to use thoughts as the prime way of determining things in life, making decisions, be it decisions about money, relationships, life goals, ambitions, whatever you think about, if you want to use thoughts, and especially people with the air signs, mostly the Geminis, they will be using a lot of thought to determine things because they want to be logical, they want to be rational. Um, so they think that's the best way to think it out. Even Virgos, I've seen, they will use a lot of systematic analyses and thinking, and they know they'll make a pros and cons list because they know that is the best way that they can think of logically to come and make a decision. I believe thoughts are a great way if you have purified your thought processes and you don't accumulate negative thoughts, thoughts that create fear and worry and feelings of failure. Then the thought process can get tainted to a degree where they might not be able to lead you to the right decision. As we say, you're not thinking clearly. If you're delusional or if you are under enormous stress, you're not thinking clearly. If you sleep, you wake up in the morning, you feel better because then you have had this period of restorative sleep to generate the best thoughts. So, thoughts need to be purified by meditation and by activities of karma yoga, and then they are as distilled and purified as it gets if you want to use thoughts as the primal force for making decisions. If your decisions are driven by intense emotions, those are the worst decisions that we can make. So say in a fit of rage, if we say something, what is rage? Anger. It's a intensified emotion that you are grappled with because of some stimulus that is thrown towards you. If someone punches you, your instant reaction is to punch him back. But if your thought processes have been mollified enough, you will not be overdriven by emotion. So that's why emotions are a very strong force that will sweep you away if you don't control them. And controlling your emotions biologically is related to use of a release of serotonin. That's the control neurotransmitter in the brain, and that's why you'll say people in a fit of rage will jump from the bridge, will hang themselves. People who are depressed, because in depression you have lower levels of serotonin, and to increase the serotonin we medically give them selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, things like Celexa, Prozac, Lexapro, Zoloft, all those medications. But basically the idea is to increase the serotonin. You can also increase the serotonin by meditation. Meditation can be dharana or dhyana. Dharana is when you say a certain word. It can be your chanting word Om, and that will kind of realign the forces and the emotions and the thoughts in your brain to become more cohesive and coherent. So emotions again need to be tamed, and the best way to tame it is meditation, and be in a joyous state, be in activities that make you happy, because when you are unhappy, the emotions are more likely to grapple you and make you take a decision in a fit of anger, in a fit of rage, feeling intense fear and worry, impending doom, that you will make poor decisions. That happens a lot in the stock markets where people make irrational decisions. That happens a lot of times in life where people go on spending spree and max out on their credit card. So those are all emotional decisions, which are the worst decisions. You have to acknowledge the existence of the emotion, but at the same time say, this is not me, and it will pass away. So coming to the third point, about first point was about nature, second is about the spontaneity, and the third point is about the duration. Emotions uh, can become permanent. In general, they will be very temporary. Just like thoughts, they will be temporary, and intuitions are always permanent. But emotions, if you linger on them long enough, they will become permanent. They become your personality. So that's why it's very important to keep the emotions fleeting. Even the thoughts have to be kept. I mean, you don't have to keep them, thoughts will be fleeting. But if you ponder and ruminate long enough, emotions and thoughts, both of them, will kind of blend into each other and they become your personality. And when I say personality, I mean the congregation of thoughts and emotions that have occurred over a long duration of time because you have failed to break the cycle of impending doom, negative vibrations, and things which in general will lead you to being a more, I should say, less evolved person and more feeling giving into the vices than you would like yourself to in the long term. So that's why personality has to be groomed in a way where it is vibrant and energetic, and it is more introverted in the way that it gains happiness from within. It believes in itself as being a soul living in this body that has gotten this body to improve the character and quality of soul and not get overridden by the forces around us, the material modes of nature or gunas that surround us. Okay, so enough about thoughts and emotions. What about intuitions? The intuition, the best way to understand that is to think of it as the gut feeling. The gut feeling is something which will spontaneously come. It does not require a stimulus. You always felt some way about the things. Your fear of height, that is not a thought, that is not an emotion. That is an intuition that you are with. So it is in the subconscious, but it is deeper than the subconscious. I in general like to say that thoughts are residing in your neocortex and your mind, your manas compartment. Your emotions are residing in your primitive brain, the hippocampus, which is some way in a way close to the chitta or the subconscious. But your intuitions are even deeper. They are sitting in your, if you will, in your karan sharir. They are sitting in your causal body. Thoughts are in your gross body or mental body, and your emotions are more in your subtle body, but even deeper is lying your intuition, and you are not even aware of it. That is the depth we are talking about. So intuitions will come spontaneously and they are permanent. It's very hard to get rid of intuitions, and you should not try doing that. You should accept them because they are the most primitive and they are the most powerful logical forces that any individual is born with. Intuitions, the best examples will be your unshakable faith in a certain phenomena, your belief in a certain thing without going through the logical arguments back and forth, and things which are permanent in your mind. They are not kind of swindling back and forth. So some people you will hear, you can think of them as chittas, but I don't think they are just chittas. They are more deeper. That's why I said they are in the astral body. I'm sorry, they are in the causal or the karan sharir, the deepest level. So intuitions are this strong acquisi feeling sometimes. They can be your gut feeling. They can be a certain way you think primitively until you kind of reinforce your mind with cortical thinking, active thinking, making a pros and cons list, or thinking about someone negative energies that hit you in a certain way to become emotional. So when you remove the layer of thoughts and the underlying layer of emotions, the core that is left is the intuition. So listening to the intuition is sometimes difficult because you don't know which sounds are thoughts, which are emotions, which are intuition. But if you silence the clamor of the mind with meditation, 5 minutes of sitting quietly, and all those people who say that life is short, I implore you, Sit quietly in a room for 10 minutes without saying anything with your eyes closed. You will believe how long life becomes, because those feel like the longest 10 minutes of your life. So, meditation is the ultimate antidote for killing the negative logical forces, if you will, that exist in the compartment of thoughts and emotions, and you neutralize it so your brain remains mostly empty of any thoughts or emotions, and you don't identify with them. So in a way, you are trying to defy the gunas. You are living in the world, but you're not getting influenced by the nature of the people that are surrounding you. And that's why reclusive meditation is the ultimate way to purify thoughts and emotions. And then you can identify with your intuitions and make quality decisions. Hope you like this video. Please feel free to leave your comments below. Thank you.